Welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris.
And together we are the Horror Boys, and we're back, baby. When you're seeing this, there's like a 90% chance that we're going to be back again next week.
Yeah.
So I guess before I even get to the podcast, no, actually I'll probably do that on the episode that comes out before this, addressing the mental health stuff. So go back to that episode that came out before this episode to hear me talk about
there you
that.
Go.
But today we're going to talk about bats. But before we talk about bats, we got to explain the... Huh?
I said welcome? Question mark.
Also,
to the next stage.
Did I do that? It's a podcast
and
on the internet.
evolution.
It's a podcast on the internet, but not any podcast on the internet. It's a horror movie review podcast.
Yeah, we're out of practice, guys. Yeah. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Next episode should be fine. But before we get to the next episode, we have to film this episode, which means we gotta explain how it's different. For you, not much will be different as the audience, other than if you're watching the video version, you'll see some edits. We might slightly move in between spots, because the way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be like watching the movie, scene, break, come back, talk about that scene, movie, scene, and back and forth throughout the movie. I guess the one thing that will ever so slightly change is if you're a fan of, I'm just going to say it because it's, the bit's kind of dead at this point now. If you're a fan of Horror Bois Theater... Oh, it felt weird to say it. I don't like it. But if you're a fan of that thing, it might be there in like little tiny mini spurts. If there's like specific dialogue that's like so good we have to talk about. But in general, it's going to not be doing that because the notes-taking process was killing my brain.
And understandably so.
Yeah, so we're changing up how we do it. Hopefully, it's still a fun, enjoyable product for you, the audience.
And hopefully, it's a more fun and enjoyable process to make.
For us. But this is, if you remember, like 5 weeks ago when we talked about it, this is the first of a 2-part Super Baby mini arc on childhood fear movies.
Right.
This week we're talking about bats because this movie scared Chris when he was a little baby.
It's true.
So let's talk about it. Our director is Louis Morneau? Do you not have the notes in front of you?
No.
I still sent you the notes so you could still be there to help me on name pronunciations like we normally had. I did like that element. But I believe it's Morneau. From my understanding of French names, which is probably actually Louis Morneau. But
true.
But he directed Carnosaur 2, The Hitcher 2, and Joyride 2, alongside Horror Boy alums stuntman Dwayne Dickinson of Final Destinations 1 through 2, stuntman and actor Ken Kersinger of Jason Takes Manhattan and Freddy vs. Jason, makeup effects artist the late Bill Terazakis of Jason Takes Manhattan, Final Destination 2, Freddy vs. Jason, and Halloween Resurrection. Makeup effects artist Maureen Terazaki of Final Destination 2, and Nick Zano of The Final Destination.
Wow.
So, Joyride 2, it's a Horror Boy alum stacked film. Gotta make sure to watch that, Horror Boy alum fans.
Yeah. If there are any of you.
I'm sure there might be. Maybe. So our writer is John Logan of Alien Covenant, Rango, The Aviator, Skyfall, Spectre, Sweeney Todd, Gladiator, and They Them, or They Slash Them, because I think it's supposed to be a pun off of it also being a slasher film. They Slash Them alongside Horror Boy alums stuntman Russell Towery of Texas Chainsaw 3D, makeup effects artist and puppeteer Tony Gardner of Seed of Chucky through the Chucky TV series, and last but certainly not leastly, in that movie we got Kevin Bacon of Friday the 13th. Some argue he's kind of the original Horror Boy alum, and by some people I mean I've said it once, so therefore it's a statement.
Yeah, that somebody has made it a point in time.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there actually is any argument on it, now that I think about it. It's kind of just a fact. He was the first ever person to get credit for being in a movie.
It's true. On our specific podcast.
Yeah. No, he's the first person ever to get credit for being in a movie.
Just needed to make that clarification.
No, I don't think it was necessary. He is the first person to ever be credited in a movie. Before that, credits didn't exist. This is a weird energy. I don't know why. I guess because it's just been so long.
And we're recording it in the middle of the day.
Yeah, that might be part of it. Oh,
that was interesting.
Ooh, freaky camera.
Oh,
Spooky.
it's a spooky episode.
Oh, it's a spooky one.
Haunted Bats episode.
But I really want to just point out, this movie, spoiler, I enjoy it, somewhat at least, from what I remember when we watched it. I watched it like a month ago. But what I will say is, I don't remember this movie being written that well. So it shocks me that this man, like, went on the next year to write Gladiator, and then also wrote Skyfall and Spectre, two, like, pretty respected of the James Bond franchise films. Like, he's got, like, some good writing credentials under him, but also...
Yeah, this movie absolutely is not it.
But he also, wrote this and They/Them. So I'm just like, what happened?
It's a real mixed bag.
Yeah. Our composer is Horror Bois alum. I still don't know how to pronounce his name, but I'm going to go with Graham or Gremmy. I don't know. Ravel. Mr. Ravel of Child's Play 2, Bride of Chucky, Idle Hands, and Freddy vs. Jason. Chris's favorite movie of all time.
The worst movie ever made.
That is a lie, and you know it.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
There's like probably 5 movies that are worse than that we've covered alone, let alone.
Yeah. Thanksgiving is pretty terrible.
Yeah. It is. And also, like, even though you hated the movie, will admit that the last scene is great. There's nothing great about Freddy's Dead.
I like the special effects in that movie.
The special effects are equally good in this movie, on Freddy vs. Jason, though. Except for the digital effects. We don't talk about those. Slugman is weird. But this is not the Freddy vs. Jason episode. That was like a year ago. Go back and watch that. Because we're back, baby. So watch our old episodes. Please.
Yeah.
Our director of photography for Bats is George Moradian of The Hitcher 2, Deadly Swarm, Pterodactyl, and The Circle, alongside Horror Bois alums Joe Unger of Nightmare on Elm Street and Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and Henry Czerny of Scream 6.
Oh.
Yeah. Our production designer is Horror Bois alum Philip Duffin of Bride of Reanimator. Our special makeup effects supervisors are none other than the K&B effects group of, well, just Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger, as Robert Kurtzman had left by this point. But yeah, K&B has done way too many movies to bring up, but I will highlight Wishmaster, Scream, The Faculty, and, most recently, Halloween 5. Like, for us covering it, not most recently. They definitely are still making movies. But you know what I meant. But yeah, next line here is special effects coordinator is Eric Allard or Allard. I don't know.
You got me on that one.
Alien Resurrection, the movie that exists in the franchise.
Yep.
Then we have our stunt coordinator, Horror Bois alum Kurt Bryant of Wishmaster, Jack Frost 1 and 2, Scream 2, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, and Friday the 13th 2009. Yeah, he has some pretty decent work under his belt. And Nightmare on Elm Street 10 and Jack Frost 1. Other notable stunt performer we have here is Horror Bois alum Dawn Shanks of Halloween 5 and I Will Always Know What You Did Last Summer. We have our visual effects studio, which is Pop Film. Then we got some visual effects supervisors in Shant Jordan of Children of the Corn 5, From Dusk Till Dawn 2 and 3, and Stay Alive. Laurel Click of Mortal Kombat, Predator, The Terminator, and From Dusk Till Dawn 2 and 3. And lastly, Patrick Perez of From Dusk Till Dawn 2 and 3, Zoom, Speed Racer, Black Panther, Sonic the Hedgehog, Spider-Man No Way Home, Morbius, and the video game The Quarry, alongside Horror Boy alums Lynn Shay of Nightmare on Elm Street and New Nightmare, Lance Henriksen of Scream 3, Grace Zabriskie of Child's Play 2, Ted Raimi of Wishmaster, and David Arquette of Scream through Scream 2022. Yeah. Our editor is Glenn Garland of The Hitcher 2 and most of Rob Zombie's movies, meaning he was super close to being a Horror Boy alum for Rob Zombie's Halloween, but, you know, I never finished taking notes on that.
Yeah.
But now that we're changing up the notes process, as long as this goes well, we might be bringing back the Halloween franchise sooner rather than later just to finish it. Who knows? Who knows? Not me. But yeah, also I want to point out the reason, you know, you may be thinking if you're a avid Horror Boys listener, you might be like, you've never talked about editors before. And that's true. Because there is one of two ways to be added to the needs to be addressed on pre-notes, and then we'll going forward of everyone who's in that category will be mentioned. That's doing a really great job. I believe it was the production designer of the Chucky TV show that got us to now give credit to all production designers. You also have the option of this man, Glenn Garland, who did such a bad job that I feel the need to bring up editors going forward forever. But yeah, this movie has some of the worst editing, specifically in like two scenes. Really weirdly, like overall, he actually shows some restraint, but there are a couple scenes that we will get to as we discuss this movie.
He really lets loose.
That have some of the worst editing in the history of anything. Which actually makes sense that he went on to do a lot of Rob Zombie's work, because he also really likes that music video style, flashy editing, which I guess you could say this guy does. I'm not going to say well, but he does it.
He does do that. Yeah. That's in his wheelhouse.
And last but not leastly, we will bring up our puppeteers for this movie. We have Greg Nicotero, Horror Boy alum James Hirahara.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. You could have been right. I don't know. Of Bride of Chucky. Horror Boy alum Mark Maitre of a lot of stuff, because he is also a makeup artist that works for K&B. So I'm not going to bring up all the stuff he's done, but he's a Horror Boy alum for a lot of the work they've done because he works with them. Horror Boy alum Jake McKinnon of Wishmaster and The Faculty. Horror Boy alum Timothy Ralston of The Faculty, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and Friday the 13th Part 7. Oh. Horror Boy alum Shannon Shea of Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Faculty, and Child's Play 2. Mark Irvin of Godzilla 1998, AVP, and AVPR. Godzilla 98, the best Godzilla movie according to Matthew Broderick's mom. And lastly, we have Luke Conlian?
Yeah.
Okay. From Dusk Till Dawn, Alien Resurrection, Hellraiser 4, and Mrs. Broderick's favorite Godzilla movie, Godzilla 98. But yeah, I'm not going to bring it up every time we do it, but this will be the first time that we will be saying, see you in a little bit.
Yeah.
Alright, so this first scene, yeah. Oh, buddy. We'll start with saying that we open on a couple driving up in Gallup, Texas.
That's right.
And yeah, this couple is Quint and Emma. Quint is played by Tim Whitaker, and Emma is played by Juliana Johnson. Yeah, they're having an argument.
Because Quint is most likely cheating on
maybe, or
Emma.
just Emma might have heard a rumor. We don't really get to know because these characters don't matter.
And not at all. No.
Quint gets his arm cut by something, and he gets out of his car to kind of figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And when he gets back in the car, they're attacked by editing. Sorry, my bad. Bats. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the viewers are attacked by editing.
That's
what
it
happens.
is. You're right, yes. Yeah, so they just get a bunch of the worst editing you've ever seen, including the choice of a train going by that is intercut throughout it, so you get even more motion blur just for the sake of motion blur.
There's no point in showing the train at all.
No.
It is just there, but it is there.
Yeah. So you get to see that some extra bit. That's pretty cool. I mean, if you are into that, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a real shame that the editing is so terrible because there's like a lot of really well done cinematography.
There really is like genuinely beautiful shots before it all happens.
Which is also kind of unfortunate because it sets you up for some really unrealistic expectations throughout the rest of the movie. Like the rest of the movie, you don't really get shots this beautiful.
I don't really remember. Maybe there are other shots that we just forgot about because of the bad plot.
It's entirely
we might find out as we watch it today. But before we leave this scene, I do want to bring up one extra thing, which is for some reason after the attack and our boy Quint is thrown through the windshield, we just see one of the bats puppets just kind of humping. It feels like almost.
Well, he's having a little snake.
But he's like just popping up and down, and you're like, all right, okay. Settle down, Greg Nicotero. You're going a little hard on the puppeteering here.
The limitations of the bat puppets is really what it is.
But yeah, and then we end this scene by transitioning into our title card.
Bats. There's a lot of bats.
Ooh. Our next scene, we open up in Skull Valley, Arizona. And we're meeting some new characters. Woo!
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, baby. We got Dr. Sheila Casper, who is played by Dina Meyer of Piranha 3D, Saw 1 through 4, Starship Troopers, and Johnny Mnemonic. Which I just wanted to bring up the movie Johnny Mnemonic. There's like no Horror Bois alums in it, so I wasn't able to bring up anyone in it.
Hey, if Keanu Reeves is ever in a horror movie,
we'll watch it. Unless it's like crap, then we won't. Yeah. He's in Constantine. Does that count? That's horror adjacent at least. Okay.
I do enjoy Constantine.
We might watch Constantine just so we can have him be a Horror Bois.
Keanu Reeves is HBA.
Yeah, just so he's a Horror Bois alum, we will watch Constantine. But yeah, we also her assistant, I guess we'll call him, is Jimmy Sands, who is played by
Man in the chair.
Huh?
I said the man in the chair.
Yeah, it's played by Leon. That's it. No, nothing else. Just Leon. Above the Rim, The Temptations miniseries, The 5 Heartbeats, and Cool Runnings alongside Horror Bois alums Ken Kersinger, stuntman Jacob Roop of Jason Takes Manhattan and Final Destination 3, writer and actor Tommy Swerdlow of Child's Play, and legendary composer Hans Zimmer, who is actually apparently a Horror Bois alum for playing guitar in Jason X.
Oh. Alright, let's go Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, apparently Hans Zimmer played the guitar in Jason X. But yeah, so there are some more characters that we get introduced later in the scene, but we'll talk about them when we get to them. Because we gotta give you a little bit of the dynamic here on Dr. Sheila Casper. She's a bat scientist.
Yeah.
But Jimmy, her assistant, he doesn't like bats.
Yeah, he's only there because he thinks she's kind of cute. And he likes bats, but
from
not
a distance.
Not up close, yeah.
And he didn't give that girl the disease. Wait, sorry, I'm jumping a little further into the scene. But yeah, so it's basically, that's the gist of this scene for the most part at the beginning here is, he don't like bats, she does like bats, she's a bat scientist. And she's in a medium-sized roost. But yeah, so she's telling him that she might lose feed, which is not a part of the project that he likes. But it starts going out, but it actually sounds like he's the one who's having some sort of issues. So she runs her little butt out there. I don't know why I said little. That was weird. I'm sorry. She runs out of there. It's actually not a little butt, as she mentions, because she's been eating too much cheesecake.
Not the Jimmy bites, of course.
Huh?
I said not the Jimmy mines, of course.
No, he likes a little extra weight. Oh, this is all actual dialogue, guys.
It is. I promise.
But yeah, so she runs out, and what the heck is it? It's a
Bats.
No, it's a helicopter.
No, it's a helicopter.
A helicopter's coming down, and we are out of the helicopter comes two people, which is the first one, the only one who actually has dialogue in this scene. We have Dr. Toby Hodge, who is played by Carlos Jacket of Barbie. And I don't know what to do next, because this man was in 3 different shows associated with bits. So, I guess I'll just do all of them. Firstly, he played Ken in Anne, the first episode of Season 3 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. A really good episode where he plays a very important part, but I'm not going to go into what that part is, because it would be spoiling the episode.
Oh.
Second, I'll bring up he played Richard in The Bachelor Party, the 7th episode of Season 1 of Angel, which is another great episode where he plays an important character that if I were to explain why his character is important, it would ruin the episode. And lastly, he was in She's All That, alongside Horror Boy alums Anna Paquin, Usher, Freddie Prinze Jr., Clea Duvall, Tim Matheson, Eldon Henson, the late Alexis Arquette, the late Debbie Lee Carrington, Sarah Christine Smith, and lastly, but definitely not leastly, it's one and only national treasure, Matthew Lillard.
Yeah.
Also, coming off the helicopter is Dr. Alexander McCobb, who is played by Bob Gunton of The Shawshank Redemption, Patch Adams, and Dead Silence. So I guess this actually isn't just the childhood trauma arc, it's also the Gunston arc.
Gunton.
Yeah, good old... Oh yeah, Gunton, not Gunston, sorry. Gunton arc. Because he's apparently in both these movies that we're about to cover in these next 2 weeks.
Yep.
So, let's go Gunton! Who he thinks bats are kind of creepy, just by the way. It's in, like, the making of. He goes, like, oh, like, the weirdest, like, delivery. He's like, oh, bats are creepy! It's like, okay.
Did you also watch the Drew Gooden
I
video?
did watch that, but I also watched the video that that's from, for research purposes. But yes, I did also watch the Drew Gooden video.
Drew Gooden's also covering bats.
But we're doing it a little bit more in-depthly.
Yeah, we are.
So yeah, Dr. Toby Hodge is like, yo, this is not a direct dialogue, sorry everyone. But yo, Sheila, we need you because there's a medical
bat problem.
Yeah, I'm from the CDC. No, Chris, I was trying to build to that.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I'm of the CDC and there's a biological emergency, and she's like, what? Bats. It's bats.
Yeah,
so
it's bats.
She has to go to Texas with him to get the bats.
The bat situation under control.
Good old bats. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our next scene, we're back, and it's a very short scene. It's important because it establishes 2 things. One, it introduces our secondary main character, and also establishes, well, it looks like he might have the hots for our first main character. Because he's like eyeing her down. But yeah. My boy Sheriff Emmett is apparently into Sheila Casper. Because he is like every other line he delivers, which none of them are important enough to like bring up the exact dialogue him and Dr. Toby have. But yeah, he just straight up is eyeing her up the whole time and being like, alright, I guess we can work together. As he just stares at her.
Yeah. This man's never seen a woman before.
Which we know isn't true because, as we find out later, his mayor of his town is a woman.
Sure.
But, you know. Sheriff Emmett Kinsey is played by Lou Diamond Phillips of Demon Wind, Stand and Deliver, Courage Under Fire, Young Guns 1 and 2, and La Bamba, alongside Horror Boy alum Joey Pants Pantaleone of Chucky Season 2. This next scene, they're in a car driving as our 2 main characters of Sheila and Emmett. And I actually think this is going to, I told you that it might show up occasionally. It is now time for
Horror Boys Theater,
the mini version. Chris will be playing Emmett, and I will be playing Sheila.
So, ma'am, you're a doctor now. What exactly?
Wildlife zoology, specialty in Chiroptera.
Uh-huh.
Bats, Sheriff. I work with bats.
Bats. Uh-huh. So how does that make you a batologist?
No, it makes me a wildlife zoologist with a specialty in Chiroptera.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, as you see there, that was the peak dialogue of the writer of Skyfall and Gladiator. Wrote that! And I just felt like we needed to bring that up to you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Like 3 times he says, uh-huh. That's the dialogue. That is the quality of the dialogue in this scene.
Bats.
Oh, gosh. Bats.
Uh-huh.
So does that make you a batologist? No. It makes me the thing I already told you a second ago.
Uh-huh.
But can't you tell they're going to be in love by the end of the movie? Isn't it sweet?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, they're hitting it off right off.
Absolutely. If you were to describe... If I would ask you, are they hitting it off? You would say...
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Chris, for understanding where I wanted you to go with that bit. And that's why we work so well together. All right, so now we get a very useless driving, like, not driving, but like driving up to the building that goes on for like a solid 5 seconds. Which, yes, 5 seconds is not long, but in movies, when you get a shot that is 5 seconds that is pointless, you really notice it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I guess it's kind of like an establishing shot for the town, I guess.
We didn't need it. It was unnecessary.
Okay.
But yeah, so they drive up, and the gang goes inside, and there's an autopsy of, I believe it would be Quint.
Yeah.
But before we get to the autopsy itself, we will mention that we do have a new character we're meeting here, which is Dr. Swanbeck, who is played by the late Oscar Rowland of Footloose and Silent Night, Deadly Night, alongside Horror Bois alums Linnea Quigley of Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and Max Robinson of Halloween 5. But yeah, he's here, and he's basically, like, I guess the local doctor, and he's literally here to be like, alright, we don't need you, go away. And he does.
Yeah.
And our boy, Dr. Toby, takes over the autopsy. And yeah, we're finding out that it's a bat that did this. Could it be?
Looks like a whole lot of small incision sites.
Yeah.
And then...
But our girl says, no way. Sheila's like, no.
Bats don't do this.
Bats couldn't be a bat. The tooth I found here is of a fruit bat.
Yeah. And fruit bats don't eat people.
Well, that's
in case the name didn't give it away.
Oh, okay. I thought you were spoiling a line that comes up at the second half of this scene.
No.
Bats don't kill people. Period. And then the movie ends. Because bats don't kill people. Period. But yeah, so basically that's the gist of the scene, is her being like, nah, this can't be. And they're like, but it is.
Yeah.
And she's like, must be a hoax. And they're like, no. Well, you see, actually our boy, what's his name? Dr.
Alexander McCabe.
Yeah, good old Macabre. In case you weren't wondering if he's maybe a little evil, his name means death.
Yeah.
Macabre.
And he also gives weird glances at the camera whenever they're like, there's no way a bat could do this. And he's like,
but what if I did do it? I mean, the bats. But yeah, so we cut to like the next scene, which is like a continuation of the scene, but technically they move areas. But and he's like, well, you see, actually, I may have done something to the bats.
The bats are special now.
They are special. They're test subjects.
With your special bats.
Yeah, and they explain that they're the Indonesian flying foxes that have still also been, like, worked on to make them evil.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the scene. It's really just a exposition dump of the scene.
Yeah. Jimmy does say that they are the ugliest kind of bats, and I would just like to say that is unequivocally false. There are much uglier bats, and flying foxes look like little puppies.
No, they don't. I looked at them as well. They do not. They look kind of gross looking. But I will not say they're the ugliest bats. That is for sure.
They're so cute.
No, I disagree. But either way, I still would agree that they're definitely not ugly. They're just a little creepy looking to me. But that's not the point. The point is, this scene is exposition. We now know that what we already know, which is it's bats. Did you know we're watching bats? But bats don't kill people, period. So I don't know what's going on now. Oh, but I did want to bring up one last thing before we move on to the next scene. And that's actually something that we hinted at possibility being a thing in the opening scene. There actually is more beautiful cinematography. There is completely unnecessary, beautiful cinematography in some of the shots in this. More so like the second half of the scene. And actually now I'm realizing I did this slightly out of order on my bad, because we're doing it differently. I don't have it right in front of me. But I also want to bring up and highlight the really cool makeup effects from K&B, which was a surprise from the autopsy portion of the scene. It looks really cool. Not surprised. It's K&B effects. They're amazing. And they're still amazing. I know. Crazy. I would never have guessed it.
Who would have thought?
So, the next little portion, which is a little mini scene, so we're coming back real awkwardly for like 2 seconds, where they discuss, by looking at a map, where the bat roost could be.
But it doesn't matter because they get a call, and wouldn't you know it, it's another bat attack.
Yeah, so let's head on over to that other bat attack. So, at the site of the... What was that pronunciation there? My brain had a stroke in the middle of that sentence. Sorry, everyone, but I'm going to keep it in because I think it's funny.
There we go.
Gotta add a little comedy to the podcast occasionally by my brain breaking. But yeah, so the point is, this next part of the scene, we go to that, where we talked about
attack site.
Yeah, where's the attack? And we see another, honestly, pretty well done effects, because what a surprise, K&B effects. And they're kind of just looking at it, and there's really not much here other than
the mayor shows up.
The mayor.
Woo.
Mayor Amanda Branson is played by Marcia Dangerfield of Footloose, Bones and All, and SLC Punk, alongside Horror Boy alums, stuntman, actor / animal wrangler Fenton Quinn of Hereditary Halloween 4-6, Summer Phoenix of The Faculty, Christopher McDonald of The Faculty, Tom Proctor of Halloween 6, James Nickram?
Janice even.
Janice Nickram of Halloween 6. Devin Sawa of Final Destination, Idle Hands, and the Chucky TV series. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have National Treasure Matthew Lillard of Scream. And yeah, the gist of this scene is we're once again doing the thing where we're telling the audience something they already know because a new character needs to know it. Yep. So
very exciting content for the audience to watch.
So they let the mayor know that bats did it. Oh, also, sorry, there was, before we get to that part, before even the mayor actually shows up, there is a really hilarious little moment where Emmett sees the body and kicks the air very like he's a child throwing a tantrum. I just want to bring that up.
Very upset.
He's like, and then he's immediately back to standing next to them for the mayor to show up, and they tell the mayor, "Oh, I think it's bats," and she's like, "Bats?" Because you will hear. Do not play the drinking game. Every time you hear the word bats, take a drink. You will die.
You will be blackout drunk.
You will die in the 5th scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she finds out that it's bats, but not just any bats. Diseased bats. You know, the thing we already knew. Why would we not know that again? It's very important to know that again.
Don't forget, they're diseased bats.
Very important.
In case you forgot from 5 minutes ago.
Our next scene opens, very importantly, we open with meeting another character. Woo! We meet Deputy Wesley Munn, who is played by David McConnell of Trolls 2.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's about it. Who... He does have a really... Not so much him, but there's a really funny line from Emmett to him about how... Cancel the football game. They're going to lose anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, alright movie. So that was like purposeful comedy that was actually landed. And now the rest of the scene is just not purposeful comedy, but still lands like it is. Because we now get some of the most over-dramatic eye acting is what I'm going to describe most of the scene as. Just a bunch of every character is just working the camera with their eyes, showing you the different ways to react to things.
Absolutely. Very important.
Yeah, very, very important the way they're acting with their eyes. But yeah, so the gist of this scene is... I already kind of forgot the first, the middle of it, but the general end of it ends up being... This scene is so pointless. I already forgot half of it. But the general idea is that the doctor... Oh, sorry. If you remember what happens right when they come in.
Oh, I was going to get to the end. The general gist of the scene.
I got the second half. I just feel like there's a point that I'm missing in between the two. Maybe you can fill it in after I explain. So, they basically ask, like, the bad doctor, Mr. Macabre, like, what did he do to the bats? And he won't answer. And so... Our homegirl just exactly explains what he did, which is, make them smarter and more aggressive.
Yeah.
And she tries to say...
And they can work together better.
And she's like, and carnivorous. And he's like, no, omnivorous.
Ooh.
And everyone gets even more dramatic eyes.
Especially Lou.
Yeah.
Old sheriff.
I feel like there was the moment that I'm missing from how we walked into the room to them trying to figure out what the doctor did. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they literally just went, so what did you do to the bats? I don't remember. That portion of the scene completely blanked out of my mind because of how boring the scene was.
I think they do all just sit together and then everyone's like, so what exactly did you do to the bats?
Oh, yeah.
And then Jimmy's like... Well, now that you mention it, I am curious.
Stupid line. Oh gosh. But yeah. This scene's really, like, once again, it's just exposition dump the movie for a lot of these scenes, but which makes it hard to explain what happened to you. But I will say, while I'm watching it, the acting is so over the top. Everyone in this movie
makes the exposition still kind of engaging.
Yeah, because everyone is acting like they're in the greatest movie of all time. When they're actually in bats.
Little do they know.
Yeah. This is actually bats. I know, crazy. I thought it was the greatest movie of all time, too.
Or the overacting is intentional, and it's a great choice.
I want to believe that is true, but...
With Mr. Munson in there, I feel like it's entirely possible.
It is possible, but unlikely. Alright, next scene.
Take a look at this. This is a bat migration schematic I've created. It traces migration, feeding patterns.
Far interview.
I've entered the usual information.
Oh boy.
We forgot to mention part of the scene, the last scene, that I just remembered is important. Okay, so, we're back in the middle of this scene to realize that we forgot to mention a kind of important part, which was, Sheila being like... Is it Sheila? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sheila is like, hey, we gotta make sure we stop these bats before they infect the other bats. Because that will destroy everything. Also, we also forgot to mention that thanks to initial blood work, they have figured out that this cannot be transferred to humans.
That's right. This will not be a zombie and bats movie. It is just bats. In case you did not see the title.
Yeah, this is just bats, which is actually the initial title for the movie was Just Bats, but it was a little too long, so they shortened it to Bats.
Yeah, smart choice.
Yeah, I agree. So, alright, our next scene is our boy, what's his name? Jimmy. Good old Jimmy. Jimmy in the chair. He's doing some science work on his computer, and he's explaining migration patterns, and also the science behind bat migration to explain that once the little bat butts freeze up and get cold, they're going to migrate. And if that happens, they'll infect everything.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Including one of the places.
Yeah, he does say that by February they'll be in Mexico City and San Antonio, and I got really scared because we live in San Antonio, so we might die in February. But yeah, and then a really important point is even Dr. Sheila realizes at the end of the scene that the next step, what they have to do now is
annihilate every infected bat.
every single infected bat has to die, and that hurts for her because she loves bats. Because she's a batologist. Sorry.
No, she's a Chiroptera specialty zoologist.
There you go. He hit it, guys. Don't worry. He hit that.
Nailed it on the head.
So we get a real quick, absolutely pointless scene of Dr. Macabre doing some science that I think we're supposed to think is shady. But I actually don't even remember if this specific science he's doing in this specific scene ever comes back into play other than to try to make you think he's shady. Which he is. Spoiler. But
yeah, it's more just to hear Toby Hodge in the background on the phone talking to people we don't know.
I
but
guess. I feel like
him and Alexander Macabre are definitely in cahoots over something.
I don't think he is, though, if I remember the story. I don't think Toby is evil at all.
Well, we never get to find out.
Oh, okay. I don't remember exactly. I feel like he never came across as evil to me. But who knows? The point is, it's a very pointless scene of science and phone calls, which is the name of my new novel I'm writing.
Science and phone calls.
Yeah. I wanted it to be autobiography, but I realized that made no sense for me. But actually, that is the name of the Austin Phelps story, is Science and Phone Calls. Which I was never good at science, and I hate phone calls. I hate phone calls. Like, I genuinely do not like them. But,
Sure.
Yeah, whatever. Then we get a really weird transitioning shot of some clouds rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're hanging out with Emmett and Sheila for some character building moments.
Yep, that is
Emmett
pretty much exactly what
shares about some weird anecdote
about the red moon.
Yeah, about how the red moons are covered in blood and how people are going to die. That's what his mom told him when he was a kid.
Yeah, whenever there's a blood moon, people were going to die that night.
Yeah.
And Sheila's like, okay.
Yeah, why did you tell me this? He's like, oh, my bad.
Yeah. And then
so
Sheila sits down and talks about how she got into bats.
Well, he asks first about her necklace. Chris.
Oh, that's
very
true.
important. She's like, it's a Chinese symbol for bats.
Because bats bring good fortune, which is ironic because in this specific case, they're bringing very
it's
bad
making
fortune.
me question everything I know.
Yeah.
And then he's like, so what got you into bats? And she's like, well, when I was a kid, I was Batman.
In Ohio.
Yeah, in Ohio, I was Batman. Which
she really is from Ohio.
And she really is kind of, it's the same idea as Batman. She was scared of bats as a kid until she wasn't, and then she found the good qualities of them. That's literally the Batman story.
Yeah.
She chose to use her fear
I am also
as
Batman.
her life. Yeah, she is Batman. So is Chris. Everyone is Batman except for me, because I still think they're creepy.
You're Jimmy.
I'm Jimmy. I'm every man. I'm the everyman. You might be Batman, but I'm everyman. Alright, so we now get like a 5-minute scene almost of just bats attack. Nope. So yeah, we now cut back to the end of the last scene that we were just at, that we just told you about, where they actually get a notification on like their radio. Notification's not the right word, but what's what I'm going to say anyway and move on. And they run away. And because there's too many of them. And they run into Sheriff Emmett's cop car, and they're just attacked by CGI bats for a while.
Yeah.
They radio out, and they we get a quick cut of Toby and Macabre hearing that this is happening, and then we also, more importantly, Jimmy and Wesley hear about this, so they start heading that direction. And there's some really fun little puppet effects in this scene, but it's almost hard to see them because of all the CGI and horrible editing.
very, very terrible editing.
Yeah, you know, it's
throughout the entirety of the bat attack.
Yeah. But occasionally you'll see shots of like the puppet bats trying to like get into the car and stuff, and like the puppet bats are actually kind of cool looking.
Yeah, when you can see it properly.
Yeah, which is not a lot of it. And then eventually Jimmy and Wesley drive up, and they're gonna shoot above the bats, but then all the bats turn their eyes sight to them. Well, I guess they saw the gun because they're really smart.
Or they heard it because they are bats and have good hearing. Yeah.
But they all heard it at the exact same time, which is...
Yeah, because you have increased communal...
They have a hive
connectivity.
Mind.
Yeah, basically.
Basically, yeah. So yeah, they have their hive mind, they look over, and you think, oh god, they're about to attack them. They don't. No, they just kind of fly over them. I guess
they fly into the windshield and then fly directly up.
They're so smart, they saw a gun and was like, nah, I'm gonna nope my way out of here. So that's, yeah.
1 9mm pistol versus 1,000 bats. Who would win?
Apparently the gun. What's the gun?
Yeah. Well, we also find out that there might be a reason they flew away.
Do we? Okay, we'll find out in the next scene.
No, probably not.
We'll find out at some point in the movie. So tune in to that point later in the movie.
Yeah.
So alright, so after that they realize that they have a bat trapped under the wheel. So what's his name? Emmett puts his foot on it to hold it down in place because he's a good bat wrangler. And they cage that bat up. And then at this point, Macabre and Hodge show up. And Macabre's like, "All right, let me study the bat." And she's like, "No, get your own."
Yeah. Well, there's also we forget.
Oh, you're
that
right.
The two alpha bats are hanging out on the roof of the barn,
and he's about to and Emmett's about to shoot him, and then they
Cobb and Hodge.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My bad, guys. I forgot. There was too much, and I didn't write any of it down because that's the whole point of the new note system is I don't write it down.
Yeah, and they all fly away, and we're safe from the alpha bats forever.
Yeah.
Yippee.
So then now they're able to
tag the captured bat.
Yeah, tag the bat so they can, follow it and find out where the roost is.
Yeah, so they can take care of the whole problem.
But they when they let it go, uh-oh.
Alpha bats are back. Uh-oh, no.
Alpha bats are back.
They're not too happy about their bat compatriot being tagged.
No, they're actually not. I know, it's crazy. But they're not happy. So they cut the thing in half.
Literally rip it in half.
It's pretty cool, honestly. There's a little tiny bit of bat gore. Once again, I really like the makeup / puppeting effects from K&B.
K&B. Surprise.
Wish we were doing that for the whole movie instead of CGI, but that's just not feasible. It really isn't. Like they would have just not been able to make. They would have been like a group of 10 super evil bats, not a whole bat army. And what would really the stakes be other than the bats? If in that case, like they wouldn't be able to spread if they weren't able to show. I get it. I don't like it because the CGI does not hold up, but I also understand that was the only option they had.
The only real feasible option they had
for the story they wanted to tell at the very least. But there is a really good line though at the very end, closing line from Emmett, which I'll let you misquote because we didn't write it down, but just your Emmett's voice.
Oh.
So
yeah, I forgot what the line was.
Something like, "You could study that one if you like."
Yeah.
But I guess I'll just say it because I kind of remembered it. And that's the end of that scene. Do you have any thoughts on it, Chris? What was your thoughts on the scene?
I don't have any thoughts on
I know, Chris. I'm just trying to make not just... And then this scene happens, but there's nothing really to talk about in the scene. It's
a pretty unexciting
But it is an important scene when it comes to the...
We talked about the exciting scene.
Yeah.
Which was the bat ripping... Or the two bats ripping the one bat.
That part of it is important. So I'm glad we brought up there. I am glad. Alright, so now we got 3 scenes. Well, kind of like 6
all wrapped into one.
Yeah, we're gonna give you like 3 little... We're gonna give you first scene that's completely, technically not connected. We'll give you that one first. Which is, Hodge calls the car that has Sheila, Jimmy, and... Emmett in it. Forgot Emmett's name. Just our main character. well, dual main character with
Sheila.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he calls them and is like, hey, the CDC is going to evacuate them and reinforcements are coming tomorrow. And also in this part of the scene, Jimmy lets us know that the bats are moving closer towards Gallup, which is good. So it's a good thing they're evacuating it because all the bats are coming. They're going to kill everyone.
Yeah.
So now we get a couple establishing shots of different parts of the town. We get like a quick shot of like the baby's room. This is some sort of baby. We get a shot of a woman doing really late night laundry.
Yeah. And presumably the baby was hers.
We don't know. They're never shown to be connected, so we don't know, actually.
No, but they are shown one after another. So
yeah, but then they cut to a scene that's not connected to them at all, though, so it might just be 3 different instances. But yeah, she's doing, like, laundry outside, like, you know, with a laundry, like, with a line. Clothesline. Then we also cut to a diner where there's... this actually has a couple characters, so we'll mention them here. We have a bartender. We have a little kid who there's no knowledge on who he is, but there is a little kid. And then we also have, I believe, the patron. I believe he is Chaswick, because there is a cast member named Chaswick who I don't know anything else about him. So we're going to call him Chaswick. And if it's not, and Chaswick might be someone else in the movie, I'm sorry if I got it wrong.
Oops.
But yeah, the bartender is played by Joel Farrar. And Chaswick is played by the late George Garrides of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Hidalgo, alongside Horror Bois alums, stuntman Pat Romano of Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, Idle Hands, and Santa's Sleigh, Peter Mensa of Jason X, and Viggo Mortensen of Leatherface, A Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And then now we're going to get the second half of all those little setup scenes, which is where we cut to first the baby's room. We go into the crib. We're panning down from like the baby's head down to past his feet, where there's a bat in the crib. And then we never see this baby again. So presumably this bat killed this baby.
Yeah.
Baby death added to the kill count. Didn't think we were going to get a baby
Can't say for
death.
Sure, but almost certainly.
Yeah, can't
guarantee what the implications are.
But due to the fact that the other characters we see get killed and we never see this kid again, I think the implication is this baby's dead. Because then next we cut to the woman doing laundry. Who, after taking a sheet down, she looks back up and there's a bat hanging from the clothesline, and then she screams and presumably dies.
Yeah.
Then we cut back to the bar, or the diner, really. I only call it a bar because they call the character a bartender. Unless there's a different bartender in a different scene, then once again I'm getting everything wrong. This guy's name is Manny, so I don't know. Maybe he's not the bartender. I don't know.
Not.
But he might be. So if he is, cool. If not, sorry. Whoever played Manny, you weren't credited, so I couldn't.
Oh, you know what? I am almost certain this is not the bartender, because there is a bar later, and he takes your shotgun out to go shoot the bats.
Okay, so this is not the bartender. This is
not
Manny, who's just Manny. And he goes outside because he hears a noise at the door, and there's a bunch of bats on the door, and they attack him. Then we cut back inside the diner, and Chaswick is eating. I don't know if we mentioned there is also a little kid playing video games in
on
this
an
scene.
arcade cabinet.
On a little arcade cabinet. And then Chaswick is brutally attacked by a puppet bat.
Yeah, one of the alpha bats, it looks like.
Looks like definitely an alpha, because he's huge. And a little kid playing video games never even notices.
Yeah, it's not like it's quietly happening.
No, it's
he's
loud and
flapping all over the counter.
And this is the third scene, possibly the last scene. I really don't remember more, but there might be a fourth coming up.
Really, really terrible editing.
Yeah, horrible editing. But yeah, so we got 3 more deaths. I mean, I guess possibly 4. I don't know if we ever see this kid playing video games again. Maybe he dies as well. I don't know.
Oh, also, him playing on the arcade cabinet makes him invisible.
Actually, we actually already have 3 deaths. And then a possible 4th baby, and then also a possible 5th kid playing video games. So, might be 5 deaths. But we will never know. But yeah, so we're going to be back again for another scene. I know I said I wasn't going to do this, but I am.
Yeah.
All right, now we cut to the town, like Main Street, where all of our main characters pretty much show up. Even Mayor Amanda, like, and they're like, why are there people here? Because there's still a bunch of full town full of people.
Yeah, we thought we warned them.
Yeah.
And the mayor's like, we did, but nobody wants to believe that there's crazy bats taking over the town.
And I think before she says that, Emmett says the greatest line in the history of cinema, which is, "Crashed in a sidecar, Amanda!"
Yeah. Kind of love these Southern characters.
Oh, I love it. I really do genuinely love it. And then
yeah.
Batwoman hears the echolocation as the Bat army comes in. And they start killing everyone they kind of just fly over everyone and
they knock one guy off a bike.
One guy gets knocked off a bike, and I'm gonna say he dies.
Probably.
Yeah, and by the way, it's like a bicycle, not a motorcycle. Just knocked off a bike, but he's probably dead. One bat decides to randomly fly into a giant sign, like a neon sign.
It's like a giant neon sign,
making it explode, so we get a little cool explosive stuff there. But yeah, for the most part, people are just kind of getting like, we see a couple shots of a couple people like getting like hit by one singular bat on like the head, and then like kind of stumbling away, presumably still alive. So like these bats are really doing a horrible job of killing everyone. They're mostly just being a little annoying, I guess.
Yeah, and everyone's running inside, and then we followed Deputy Wesley.
Not yet. You're skipping the most important one, which is Batwoman, Miss Sheila, Doc Sheila. She saves a kid who is just standing still in the middle of the street. Well, all the bats fly around him, by the way. None of them are near him, really.
Yeah.
But she grabs him, and she runs, and she puts him with a bunch of moviegoers, and he goes back into theater with them to be safe. And then we follow Wesley as he runs away from some bats, because I guess the bats know he's a named character. I don't know if we call him main character, but he's a named character. Not. So they know that like killing him would be important. So they're like, we don't care about the random town goers, but this guy, he's credited. So we're gonna chase him. So he dives through a bar, glass door shatters. Cool effect or cool stunt. This is where we have bartender, because there is a bartender who like says a line.
And he says, "Get out," and the bartender's like, "Okay."
Yeah, bartender is Joel Ferrer. And we also get not our first, but definitely one of like this weird shot of Bat POV, which is like extra stretched.
Yeah, it's like the movie if it was in italics.
Yeah, it's really weird looking. And technically, I believe we're still in the bar scene when we were stopping to film this part, but we didn't want to miss all the other stuff that led into it, so we'll be back with the rest of the scene. Alright, so I was actually wrong. We're not going to stay in that part of the scene. We're actually going to cut outside real quick to see that Mayor Amanda, she got hit by a bat and her face is all bloody. She's alive, but she got cut on the face.
Yeah, it was very scary.
Then we come back to the bar, where all the bats are like slowly inching their way up to him, and he's like, "Hey, stand back!" pointing his gun at them, thinking that's gonna work. But apparently he's also oblivious to his surroundings, because he has minimum 2 bats, I think at least 3, on his
climbing up his back
that he does not realize at all.
Yeah,
not at all. Does not know they're there. And then they attack him.
He ain't the smartest deputy.
They all attack. They attack him. A bunch of other bats attack him. They swarm him. We actually get some pretty fun gore effects, especially for a PG-13 cut of a movie.
That's good.
Their editing is bad in this spot as well. So we were wrong. There's at least 4, maybe more.
Sorry, guys.
But overall, that first scene is the most egregious and the one that almost makes you go like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna go watch this movie." The rest are quick enough that they kind of just happen, and you're like, "Okay." But yeah, it's a fun little scene of him dying.
And that's it.
All right, so there was like the first thing that happens is we see now people can't drive because of the bats, which I guess kind of makes sense. So our first,
but they really can't drive.
First one smashes into a telephone pole, has it fall down, a bunch of electric shocks popping off of it. Some random bat vision, because gotta have that. That's the art. That's the art of the movie. Then Batwoman notices that some bats are maybe gonna go into a convenience store, and there's an innocent convenience store cashier who is just standing there, oblivious to the world around her. So Batwoman,
it's her responsibility to save her.
Good old Batwoman. She runs in, and she goes, "Get to the back!" And the woman waits a second, and she's like, "No!" And then she's like, "Oh, okay." And she like half jogs off.
Yep.
And then we come back outside, and another car crashes, takes out like a awning, and then crashes into another car, and we get a full-on car explosion out of nowhere in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Credit to the special effects and stunt crew. It looks cool as crap.
Chaos.
It's awesome. Absolutely cool. Alright, so now Emmett is attacked by some bats outside. He's hanging out with the mayor, helping her, and then they both hide under a car. So I can get away from the bats, obviously. Gotta hide. Then a car explodes.
Yeah. An even bigger an explosion this time.
What is this movie?
With like flames that shoot up
like
to
20
where the
feet minimum?
Where the sign is. Yeah. It's insane. And then we get to go back into the convenience store.
Back to the convenience store where Batwoman's closing all the windows. That is her name, by the way. I'm officially calling her Batwoman. I don't care if you're confused and somehow tuned in the middle of the podcast. That is Sheila.
Batwoman is Casper.
Yeah, Dr. Sheila Casper, who hated bats as a child and now uses them to find her power. So she's in the convenience store. She closes all the windows, now trapping herself with the bats. And we get the most pointless scene of tension for the sake of tension, because she's being stalked by one of the big bats. So you know it's not going to die because it's the main villain. And you know she's not going to die because she's the main character. So it's just a pointless scene that is literally only there so we can get the most egregious Coca-Cola product placement maybe in cinematic history.
Yeah, there's a Coca-Cola clock, there's a Coca-Cola sign, and a very large Coca-Cola freezer that contains all their drinks.
It might be two.
And then we get a overshot of some Coca-Cola on the shelves before we go. Yeah, it's a lot of Coke. And I do love Coke.
As well as also...
the drink.
I'll also point out the Golden Grams, the cereal from, I believe, Post, also did pay for a little rights here. Because it is very clearly centered in the middle of a shot of Golden Grams on a shelf.
Yep.
So, Golden Grams also paid their sponsorship fee. So, yeah.
Have a nice glass of Coke with your Golden Grams.
Absolutely. Alright, so now we're going to try to remember everything that happens in, like, the next 30 seconds of the movie, because it's chaos.
It's a lot.
I don't remember what happens first. We go to a bartender. We go to another bar, and another bartender. So maybe he's the bartender, the other one had lines, so we don't know. This is a third person who might be a bartender.
Grabs a shotgun and runs out the bar and
just starts
shooting into the sky.
And killing some bats. He's actually successfully killing bats, because he's not not shooting after the main ones. Then
I think we shift over to Jimmy.
Who's getting attacked by editing, and he yells at the bat. Yeah. Then we cut to Batwoman, who goes into the ticket booth in front of the movie theater and has to use her coat to block the hole that you pass your money and tickets through. And then the bartender gets into the truck, because apparently it's his truck. Yeah. And he drives away now, leaving the mayor and Emmett out in the open. But then also there's a bat in the car, so we get some more bad editing as he starts to crash, and ends up actually crashing into the ticket booth. But don't worry, but like I said earlier, Batwoman is the main character, so she got out right before she needed to. But now she doesn't have her coat!
Yeah,
her coat died! It's
gonna be a little bit cold at night.
Her coat is dead! So, then, after she's running away from the ticket booth, Batwoman is attacked by bats. I thought she learned their power, but no, apparently she isn't actually Batwoman. She's actually just Dr. Sheila. So she is swarmed by the two big bats. But they don't kill her because she's a main character.
Although they absolutely could have.
Probably, yeah. Almost definitely. Yeah. But you forgot, Chris, she's got character armor on.
She's got plot armor.
Yeah, plot armor. So they didn't beat her AC. So they're not able to kill her. But they might have been able to kill her if Toby doesn't run out of the building he's in with Jimmy.
Yeah.
He runs over, stops. The bats look over at him and they stop hitting her and go and kill him. They knock him over to the ground and then rip out his throat in a really fun kill.
Yeah.
And he's dead.
And Sheila's just going,
no, not Toby.
Fit.
I love Toby. He had like 2 scenes with me.
Yeah.
Then Jimmy runs out, and presumably there's going to be more of that scene that we will get to when we're back. So yeah, we're back for like half a scene as Emmett also comes out and asks Sheila if she's okay, and she's just going, "You saved my life. I'm alive." And that's basically the gist of it.
But the moment's broken up short because they realize the alphabets are still there.
And then they run at them and they kill it. No, actually, they just kind of fly over them. Spoop at them a little bit. But most importantly, they fly from the movie theater, which was playing Nosferatu. Yeah, that's right. Chris got it.
Silly Nosferatu.
Silly Nosferatu. That's for the millennials who don't watch the podcast. But yeah, we'll be back. All right, so now it's the next morning, and there's a lot of newspaper all over the ground because that's mainly what the bats did was rip up some newspaper. They didn't show us them doing that, but I guess they did. There's newspaper everywhere.
Literally everywhere.
And the army shows up, and Emmett looks through all the carnage throughout the whole town, including, most importantly,
Wesley.
Finding Wesley's body. Oh, Wes. He went out and died. And he also updates Amanda, the mayor, on what the plan is for like the townspeople.
Yeah.
And that's
now we're evacuated.
Yeah, now we're actually being evacuated. And I'll bring it up here just because no one has dialogue in the scene, so it's probably some of these bigger and more important soldiers probably aren't the ones we have here, but they could have been in like the background of shots. So I am just going to list off all of our military people in this movie right now. We got Sergeant James, which is played by James C., who has done a lot of voice acting, including playing Jackie Chan in Jackie Chan Adventures.
Oh.
Yeah. Major Reed, who is played by Ned Bellamy of Carnosaur, Saw, and The Possession, alongside Horror Bois alum stunt coordinator Scott J. Attia of Freddy vs. Jason, John Cassini of H2O, and Rob LaBelle of New Nightmare and Jack Frost. And then we also have Major Number 2, who is played by Kurt Woodruff. And also Army Soldier, who is played by an uncredited Grady Justice.
There you go.
And yeah, that's pretty much that scene. Looks like the characters are about to have a little conversation, so we'll let you know the gist of what they said. Alright, so this next little bit of dialogue is between our 4 main characters that are left alive, which are Sheriff Emmett, Dr. Sheila, Dr. Macabre, and Jimmy. And it's mostly Jimmy talking, finding out that apparently they're all staying. And he's very confused on why that is. Like, if the whole town is being forced out, why are they there? And he's explained through multiple people talking that it's because that, you know, they don't... The military is going to, like, drop a bunch of missiles. Yeah, airstrike it, which, according to Jimmy, would kill every living thing there and not even a single bat. Which would mean that it would not kill every living thing, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're there. Basically, he's been convinced to help stay because he had the option to leave while the other 3 were gonna stay because, you know, Sheila is a good person, Emmett wants to protect his town, and Dr. Macabre wants to continue his research on his bats because he created them.
Very important.
I want to, and I want to point out there, if anyone can buy the rights to both of these franchises, I would really like the crossover between Dr. Macabre and Dr. Herbert West. I just feel like they could have a fun movie together. I don't think it's possible. I believe Dr. Macabre dies at some point in this movie, but I honestly don't even remember.
Yeah, he does.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Herbert West died 2 times, so who knows? He could still be done.
We also
is the actor dead? He might be.
Get to find out that Jimmy is going to stay.
He's not.
But if a single bat, looks at him in a way that, and Jimmy proceeds to imitate the way that the bat puppets move, and it's pretty silly, and it almost causes Sheila to break character. It's pretty.
Or
good.
she just thought the thing he was saying was funny. Her character thought that, Chris.
There's also a chance, but I feel like she laughed more than she should have.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. All right, so the gang shows up at a school, and honestly, there's way too long of a nothing scene of them just kind of arriving at the school for a little bit there. Multiple dialogue moments that literally add nothing but just them being at a school for a couple seconds before we actually get to the point that something happens. Which that something is very important, is that we get to find out that our boy, Sheriff Emmett, likes opera.
Yeah. And everyone else is not so happy that he likes opera.
At the very least, they're confused for the most.
Yeah.
The
2
two docs
put on
confused.
opera on the speakers.
Yeah, and Jimmy thinks he's literally a sick individual for it. It's a little stronger stance than I have when it comes to opera, but, I respect it.
Yeah. Definitely not for me.
I had initially hypothesized that it was because that Lou Diamond Phillips must have just liked opera because it feels so out of place. Just like I feel like him smoking a cigar for every other scene at the beginning of this movie was just him being like, I want to smoke a cigar in this scene. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, you're the biggest star and you agreed to be in our crappy Bat movie. Sure, yeah, no, you're right. How do we forget you? You're right. Sheriff Emmett loves cigars as well. But then Chris, as we kind of were discussing, because it moves after this into a scene of them, like a montage scene of them prepping the school, like defense, basically fortifying it, if you will.
For the incoming the onslaught.
Yeah. So, and Chris pointed out, through me starting to say it, but then Chris was like, that's probably just the reason, is that the actual reason that this whole scene of him liking opera was just to explain why they used opera for the montage. And that's probably because it's in the public domain and therefore free, and they were probably already going over budget. So they had to shoot this scene real quick just to explain why they were going to have an opera song. And that's at least what I want to believe, because I don't think that the writer of they/them would have such a pointless scene. Sorry. The writer of The Aviator, or the writer of Gladiator, or the writer of... Geez, he wrote way too many things. It's crazy. But yeah, there is a fun little closing quip at the end, which is where Jimmy says, this place is going to be as secure as the Alamo.
And Sheriff Emmett's like, bad example.
Which, if you don't know your history on the Alamo, because didn't grow up in Texas, and that's really the only place Texas history is taught like it needs to be something you know.
That's fair.
We lost. The Alamo lost.
Quite badly.
Yeah. You remember the Alamo because it was the moment that made you go, yes, we have to take this loss and learn from it. Not because it was a successful moment. So yeah, it was a fun little joke there. And that's the end of that scene. So yeah, we're back to the movie where we're learning more about bats. After Jimmy comes in and is like, hey, I got the computer system set up, we'll have pictures. Emmett's basically like, alright, so what are we going to do then? And they try to go through some ideas on how to possibly, kill these bats. Poison?
Yeah.
The main poison that is used for bats is mostly ineffective, so probably wouldn't work. Bombing them would probably scatter them throughout the complex roost, and therefore not be effective. And I can't remember if it was Emmett or Jimmy. One of them says, Jimmy says, I'm never going to sleep again. And then Freddy Krueger shows up and he kills everyone.
Yep. Turns into a big old bat.
Yeah. But see, the problem is Batwoman loves bats, so it doesn't work against her. And so she pulls him back into reality. Wait, sorry, no. This is a fan film I'm making. Sorry, my bad. So when he says never sleep again, she goes, we'll make him go to sleep. And then she explains the science of bat hibernation and how when it goes under 40 degrees, that would be Fahrenheit for our European viewers, 40 degree Fahrenheit, they, go into hibernation. And if they go under 32 degrees, they die.
Yeah.
It's a very, very thin margin of hibernation for them.
It really is. 8 degrees is not much.
Yeah. So then they're like, well, how are we going to make him go to freeze? Emmett points out how they're in a heat wave. But don't worry. All they need is cooling units powerful enough to cool the roost.
Which, who knows how big the roost is.
But it's said like, oh yeah, you're right.
Impeccable logic.
Yeah, like, oh, okay, you're right. That's the answer. But it still seems such like a cooling unit. Like, that's a thing that people think of like that. Like, no, that's not like a thing.
Yeah.
But, Emmett tells Jimmy...
An incredibly industrial-sized cooling unit.
Yeah. So Emmett tells Jimmy to go get in contact with the military. So he walks away, presumably to do so. Alright, so after Jimmy walks away, Emmett's like, it looks like you're gonna walk into this roost with these bats over your head. And she's like, well, we're gonna go during the day. And bats are nocturnal. And he's like, nah, these bats.
Yeah, he said, those are normal bats.
And
she's like, well, we don't have a choice.
Yeah, and then we get a real quick bat transition as we get a shot of the town.
Into nighttime?
Yeah, now it's nighttime. Because the bats are nocturnal. Then the whole gang joins up as Jimmy lets them know that there's this, I didn't write down the weird scientific name for,
It's a super cooling unit that combines Freon, CO2, and pure oxygen, and it could cover Cairo and icicles in 3 days.
Yeah, so the military has what they need, thankfully. The random concept they came up with.
And Sheriff Emmett says it's good enough when it is comically more than good enough.
Yeah. Also, during this whole scene, our boy, and by our boy I mean
Macabre.
Dr. Macabre, who's not our boy, we don't like him, seems really nervous.
Yeah, he's like, that doesn't sound great. Oh.
Why is he nervous? You're gonna find out like the next scene, don't worry.
He'd be very excited, actually.
Yeah, you think he'd want this to end. But I guess he wants to do his research, so, he can't let them kill him that quickly. That would be bad for his research. That's why he's nervous. Yeah. But then Sheila is like, yeah, we're gonna need some special uniforms, and suits, or we gotta have equipment to go into the roost. And Jimmy's like, into the roost? Zoinks! No.
He doesn't say zoinks.
Oh, you're right.
But then Sheila's like, oh, don't worry, we need somebody to monitor our progress, right? And he's like, yeah.
I'll go next time. That was a fun little... Jimmy's normally got some fun moments.
Yeah. Jimmy is the comedic relief.
Yeah. Alright, so we're back at it immediately as the, what am I saying? Brain broke there. Yep. We're keeping it in, though. Don't you worry. I could edit this out, because we're editing out a lot of stuff during this for the process of it. But I'm not going to edit this out. Yeah. This is in. I still want you to have that classic Horror Boys experience of having parts that should be edited out that still aren't.
That's right, baby.
So, the military comes in with their military helicopter and drops off a bunch of equipment for them that, special equipment they need. And they don't like stop. They don't say hi. They just throw it out the side and leave. And then
it's nighttime. The bats could be very close by.
Macabre is not there, but the other three are out there to pick up the stuff. Most of them haven't, Jimmy, no problem. Even, Sheila, having not really any problem. But she could see that Emmett's struggling, so she says, "Sheriff, lift with your legs."
To which Sheriff Emmett replies, mind you, Sheila has already left and is no longer in earshot. He says, "Yeah, well, if I had legs like that, I might use them more often."
Yeah, and then he still struggles, but picks it up now. And then we cut to them inside. So once inside, they are bringing in the stuff. Jimmy lets them know that they got a bunch of steel-plated Kevlar to keep them protected, as well as some breathing masks, which
filter out ammonia.
Yeah, Dr. Sheila brings up how it's to filter out the ammonia, and he explains why is because of all the guano, which Emmett doesn't know what guano is.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, come on, I know what guano is. I've known that for years. Just learn things, man. And they let him know that it's bat poop, which I want to make sure that's clear that is not me saying bat poop, which is also accurate. That is me saying the Horror Bois equivalent of bat poop. Because we're still going to Horror Boisify words at times, and this is bat poop. But yeah, so then you don't want to die from breathing in bat poop fumes.
Yeah.
Which is, a fair fact,
True.
And they're trying to they get the satellite images come in, and they're trying to figure out, well, where are these bats? That's impossible. Where they are, there's no caves there.
There's no caves, but the Sheriff Emmett reveals that there is indeed a mine.
That's right. It's Black Rock Mines.
Yeah.
So they let the military know, and the military's like, "We'll be there at dawn."
Yep.
And that was where we stopped. So.
And also, Macabre is still being very nervous.
Macabre is very nervous and very shady in the background. Curious. All right, so we're back, and it's the military. And remember all those names I told you earlier? I'm gonna relist the names now. I'm not gonna relist who played who, but because a lot of them are actually in these scenes, guaranteed. Yeah. So Major Wait, could that? No, we've already had him. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Got confused there for a second in my own notes. But yeah, Major Reed, I believe was the major who was on the phone earlier, and we're now cutting to him talking to someone. I'm presuming this is actually Chaswick, not the person I said was Chaswick earlier, because I just feel like that's a thing. I feel like this makes more sense to be Chaswick, especially because he was a little bit older, and the man who plays Chaswick is sadly passed away. So just it all kind of adds up to that was probably Chaswick, and if it's not, I don't have a name for this person, and he seems like a government official that probably would be more important than random guy who gets killed.
Yeah.
So this is probably Chaswick.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we find out from Chaswick, one, that apparently his name is McCabe, not Macabre. I will continue to call him Macabre because I don't care, but apparently it's McCabe. So yeah, McCabe has actually been working in weapons development, and that's why they're going to end this right now, even though it would make more sense to wait till the morning when the bats were sleeping. They're going to go right now while the bats are out hunting, which we find out almost immediately as they're trying to lower the freezer thing was a big mistake.
Terrible idea, because here comes the giant horde of CGI bats.
Yeah, the bats are back, and they kill
Army soldier.
Oh no, it's Sergeant.
Played by?
Nope, Sergeant James. Army soldiers are uncredited, dude.
Oh, true.
Sergeant James. So yeah, Sergeant James is dead. Presumably. I guess we don't see his body die. We see him get swarmed with bats and we cut away. So he's
almost
dead.
certainly dead.
But yeah, and then we cut back to the school. So yeah, back in the room in the school, we have them finding out that it's actually going to be probably pretty easy because it's man-made and there's only one entrance. It shouldn't be that hard to get down to the roofs,
Yeah, pretty easy trip down and back up.
Until Macabre says it won't be easy. Because that's not how he designed them.
They're always aware.
Yeah, they're designed to be killing machines. Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Macabre's bad guy, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
And this is basically like his little mini villain monologue. Pulls out his gun and is pointing at them and is like, "I'm gonna kill you." this ends now.
If you, I could stop them if only you knew how to control them.
Well, that was after they. That's actually after they already disarmed him, because he has his gun out, but then the bats start hitting the windows, and that like startles him slightly. So they're able to like just rush him and take the gun away immediately. Yeah. He is no longer armed, and also they get the little notification saying the bats are there, and they're like, "How did they find us?" He's like, "Well, I called them."
Yeah.
And then he tells them, "Oh, you could stop them if you understood them like I did." And they're like, "All right, stop him." And he's like, he giggles and he's like, "Now why would I do that?" And a really fun delivery. And then he gets punched out by Emmett.
Yeah.
Just lays him out. All right, so back to wherever we were. I don't remember where we left off exactly. Oh, they knocked him out. And now all the bats are trying to get in, and but then the lights go out, and then a bunch of really bad editing. This is normally in the point in the podcast where I go, "This is a really hard action scene to try to describe to you, but it's fun to watch." But it wasn't, because the editing is atrocious.
It actually really hurts to
it actually
physically hurts to watch.
It's just bad. But the tiny bits of highlights that matter are there's a flame torch moment where Jimmy flame torches a bunch of them, which was kind of cool. Yeah. Cut to a little bit later where Jimmy gets attacked by one and has one like biting his arm. Sheila
rips it off of him
and stomps on it to kill it. And all during them doing that part,
Emmett's getting the backup generator.
Emmett's trying to get the backup generator on. It's not working at first, but eventually he gets
it on, finally does.
And it fries all the bats that are currently stuck on the electric fences. Which presumably takes out a decent amount of them, but don't worry, it's not enough that it actually will matter at any point in the movie how many got killed here, but presumably some did. Also, during all this chaos, at some point, Dr. McCabe gets up and he heads outside, and Emmett's like, "What are you doing?" basically, and he's like, "I can control them. They love me.
They want me.
Yeah. And he's like, "Come to me," and then they come and kill him.
Yeah.
First, one of the bigger ones rips off his ear and slashes his throat, and then he's swarmed by some CGI bats, and then the three good guy characters who are left hide themselves back inside. And that's 5 minutes of the movie condensed into 30 seconds.
It was honestly probably closer to 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, it really was. It was a lot of movie.
Yeah.
Where not a lot
of terrible editing.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're back, and the gang is arriving at the mine. We get some panning shots of them arriving at the mine. And then, oh god, they see all the dead soldiers. They're everywhere. All the characters we didn't care about are dead.
Yep, and then Sheriff Emmett finds a radio and gets on the radio with Major Reed.
And it's like, you got, what, I don't remember exactly how it starts, but he's like,
"Your cooling unit's down there."
And then
they're like,
they
can turn it on.
It failed. The mission failed. We're bombing you. And he's like, "Well, no, you can't. Give us a little bit of time. We'll turn it on for you." And he's like, "No, we're bombing you. You have an hour. Get out." And they've decided that, no, they're going to just do it anyway. And they have an hour to get everything done. Or they die.
Yeah. Or they get blown up.
Yeah, just gonna eat a little bit of steaks, just a tiny little bit of steaks. Like a nice little tiny, New York strip.
Oh, man, I could go for a New York strip. Alright,
so now, after they've now made the decision to go in, even though they probably shouldn't, and they're gonna die if they don't get this done in an hour. Yeah. They managed to get ready. There's a montage, not managed. Yeah. There's a montage of them getting ready to head into the mines, setting up everything they need, suiting up, all that kind of stuff.
Setting up explosives to, block the entrance if they need to. Yeah. And wait.
Well, not at that point.
What was that?
There's a couple points before that.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Stop running, Russian. There's not much left in the movie. We don't have to rush. Jimmy first shows that he has a camera feed to her, so Jimmy can be, the man in the chair, knowing exactly what happens. He has a camera on Sheila's head. Then Sheila makes Jimmy promise to blow the entrance if they don't get back up in time. Sealing them in and, making sure the bats don't get out if they can't do what they need to do here. so they could just blow up the entrance.
Yeah.
This is
they absolutely could.
The biggest...
No reason for them to go in.
Yeah, no.
Actually.
If either if they fail, it's pointless, it doesn't matter, it's over, or blowing up the entrance is enough. Why are they blowing up the entrance? So why are they going down? Or why are they taking this extra precaution of blowing up the entrance that isn't going to help? It's one of two.
Yeah.
But alright. Okay, movie. So Emmett and Sheila, they head onto like an elevator and get lowered into the depths of the mines. There's then 2 tunnels in front of them and they don't know what to do. Which one do they go down? Well, actually, you see, Sheriff Emmett, he's a smart man. And he sees that there's some possum bones in one. And there's no possums in this cave. So the bats must have brought it. So they should go down the right cave because that's where the possum bones are.
Man. And Sheila says, I'll make a chiropterologist of you yet. They did know what the word was, and they just chose not to use it in the beginning.
To be fair, I don't think that whole line, your joke here, and the bit you're trying to make here was actually in the podcast. I think that was you complaining off in the, like, in-between parts.
No, but I'm explaining why they could have.
But they also, I'm sorry, I think that's just, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying I'm a zoologist that's special, because also she's more than just a chiropterologist. By that definition, she went to school to be a full-on zoologist and just specializes in that. If anything, that shows that she knows more than just bats. That's just what she chooses to specialize in. It actually
makes her chiropterologist.
It makes her more impressive. You're wrong. But yeah, then the floor falls out from under them as they're in this tunnel, and they fall into some water. Wait, that's not water. They're now waist deep in bat poop. It's guano. They're in a bunch of guano now, wading through the guano and all the parasites and whatnot, and they're in it. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nice chill place to be in the guano.
Yeah,
probably is actually cooling. But yeah.
Well, with all the parasites in there, probably not.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, you don't want to be waist deep in poop. All right, we're back for the last portion of this movie. Now they're down there, but they can't turn on the machine because they don't have a key. So we get a little quick time for them to search for the ignition key, and they, find it. Of course. Around this point, the bats start to move around. Huh?
Yeah, the alpha bats have already awoken.
Yeah, the bats all the bats are kind of moving around a little bit, and the alpha bats are circling around their prey. Emmett gets attacked by one of the alphas and gets knocked down to the ground. Sheila tries to help, and then we get some chaotic, hard to follow editing where I think by the end I realized both are being attacked by separate bats.
Yep, the 2 different alpha bats.
Emmett ends up for some reason taking off his mask at some point. I think maybe he got maybe it got broken and he just didn't want broken glass in his face or something. Maybe.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, because it's hard to see because it's crazy. Sheila fights off a bat by burning it with a flare. She then has to shoot the other bat off of Emmett, and then they start to run out while the bats chase them. And then I'm going to bring up some dialogue that we had skipped over before, but it took them 15 minutes to descend.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, they have 4 minutes left to make their full run out and escape. Yeah. And during this, Emmett does stop to shoot the bats at multiple times, slowing them down, if anything.
Yeah.
But don't you worry.
Not the bats.
But yeah, they do have plot armor, so they barely escape just in time as the Jets are making their final approach. And then we get some really fun explosion sequences as they blow up the entrances. Really cool looking.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna be happy with some cool explosive stunt effects. That's fun. The Jets get called off. The gang celebrates, including Emmett mentioning that it's time for a cigar, continuing to add the fact that I like to think that specifically Lou Diamond Phillips just really liked cigars.
Hey, can I have an excuse to smoke a cigar in the scene?
Please.
Perfect.
All right, cool. We then see, oh no, a bat is burrowing out of the ground. setting up for Bats 2. But oh wait, no, he gets run over, and then the gang's car, and we head to the credits with some fun surfer music. Yeah.
Surfer music in Texas.
Yeah, well, I mean, because they are going to go surfing probably now.
Well, they did mention that briefly.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah, so
that was Bats.
Yeah, that was Bats. Time for the final thoughts on the podcast. I enjoy it. It's not good, but it's stupid fun. I enjoyed my time watching this. I could watch this again and not hate myself for doing so. I probably still won't for a while, because, I just watched it. But, yeah. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think this movie will always hold a special place in my heart. Because it gave me a irrational fear of bats, which later led to me having a deep love and appreciation for bats.
Because he is Batman.
I'm Bat. I'm Bat person.
Batman is already out there. You can't be Batman.
I'm Bat person.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty goofy. It takes itself too seriously to a point where it becomes full circle and becomes very funny again.
Yeah.
The acting is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, the cinematography is great, by the way. Also for a lot.
And when it isn't solid, it feels like it's intentional.
Yeah. We
the
mentioned
overacting.
a few moments of it, but I do want to just once again praise director of photography George Moradian, because he did some great work.
He really did.
Better than this movie deserved.
Yeah. It goes without saying. Unlike the editor, oopsie. That was literally the worst part of the movie.
Ooh.
That and the glaring plot holes.
Yeah. But no, actually I disagree. The glaring plot holes.
The editing is much worse.
Yeah, the glaring plot holes, I don't care. Those can be looked away. But the editing, you literally have to look away.
Yeah.
So, Glenn Garland, if you're watching this, shame. Shame on you.
Do better.
Yeah. I mean, he did. I wouldn't call it good, but he did Halloween, and Halloween's editing was not this. He did do better. It was
not as egregious.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's still way better than this. It was not bad enough that I probably would have brought him up if we had covered Halloween like we were supposed to.
But overall, if you like goofy horror movies, this is absolutely one to watch. I would highly recommend.
Yeah, this is a perfect creature feature B movie, which is what it should be, and
even better to watch with friends.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very fun time. Chris talked about how this movie has a special place in his heart. Well, next week we're gonna watch a movie that has not a special place in my heart, at least as of now. Maybe rewatching it now will change that, but I still hate this movie. I've only watched it half watched it once when I was a child. I'll go into a little bit more of the story next week. But yeah, Dead Silence. That's the second half of the childhood trauma arc, or the Gunton arc. Is it Gunton or is it Bunton? What is it?
It's Gunton.
Is it? Okay, Gunton. Okay.
It is.
Yeah, the Gunton arc. Second half of that. We're watching Dead Silence next week. Make sure you're there. Also, hey, if you're on a video podcast format, or you're my dad, let me know. How did this?
How do you like this new podcast?
Yeah, how did this podcast work? Did it work? Because I liked it because it took me less than 4 hours to go through the whole process of this, not over 10. So I like this a lot more. So this will be what the podcast is. Just let me know if you like it, because we're not changing it.
No.
But I just want to know if you like it. But yeah, I've been Austin, joined by Chris as always, and we will see you next week. But no, not yet. Go support us on all the things. 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
YouTube.com/@HorrorBois. And if you want to support us directly, Patreon.com/HorrorBois. Now, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.